By the time the doorbell started screaming like it had a personal vendetta against me, my husband was already mid-confession, mid-redemption arc, mid-I suddenly understand love speech. And honestly, that timing alone should have told me everything I needed to know about how this night was going to go. I opened the door, and there she was, rain-soaked, dramatic, clinically unstable energy radiating off her like a Netflix warning label, staring straight at him and asking, in the calmest voice possible, "Chin-Yue, you said if I nodded you'd marry me. Does that still count?" And just like that, 3 years of marriage, strategic manipulation, and emotional gymnastics condensed into one absurd little sentence that hit harder than any slap ever could. And the funniest part? I wasn't even mad. Not really. Because if you're me, if you grew up the way I did, you don't get mad, you get efficient. You don't cry, you calculate. You don't lose, you pivot. I mean, let me rewind a bit, because this isn't a love story, and it definitely isn't a tragedy. It's more like a very expensive, very well-dressed scam that I happen to be both the architect and occasionally the collateral damage of. I was born into a family that used to be rich, the worst kind of rich, the kind that still talks like it is, but can't afford the electricity bill. And from the moment I could understand language, my mother made it very clear that my existence was less miracle and more unfortunate side effect, especially since my dad only decided to stop cheating after I was born, which she somehow blamed on me, like I personally dragged him out of some champagne-soaked affair dungeon. My older sister got new dresses. I got her rejects, literally handed to me with a smirk like charity. And I remember standing there, at 8 years old, holding a slightly too small, slightly too old dress, and thinking, okay, so this is how this works. She discards, I collect. And honestly, that became my entire personality. I didn't fight for things, I repurposed them. My sister didn't like a brand new dress because it didn't match her skin tone? Great, now it's mine. My family didn't invest in me the way they did in my brother. Private schools, tutors, the whole future air package? Fine, I'd build my own system. I sold fake Antarctic magic diamonds to classmates by gluing together scraps and spinning stories so ridiculous they looped back into believable, outsourced homework to college students. NTS, premium prices for academic improvement. And somehow by the time I hit senior year, I had turned being overlooked into a full-blown business model. So when I got into a top university, not because anyone believed in me, but because I gamed the system better than anyone else, I already knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to marry for love. I was going to marry for leverage. Enter Chin-Yue. Rich, handsome, spectacularly useless. The kind of guy who looked like he belonged on a magazine cover, but had the life direction of a Roomba stuck in a corner. And I picked him up, quite literally, at a proposal scene where some rich idiot was begging a beautiful, brilliant woman to marry him, and she basically said, "You have money, but what else?" And while everyone else was watching the drama, I heard the word free somewhere in the chaos and thought, perfect, I'll take this one. Stepped in, diffused the situation, and somehow walked out with a boyfriend who later became my husband. Was it romantic? Absolutely not. Was it effective? Extremely. For 3 years I played the role flawlessly. Dutiful wife, socially polished daughter-in-law, strategic connector between families, while quietly absorbing everything I needed. Business knowledge, social capital, leverage over my own parents, who suddenly found me useful once I married into money. Chin-Yue, to his credit, wasn't terrible. He was weak, yes, and directionless, definitely, but he was kind in a way that was almost inconvenient, like the time he burned his own hand just to warm mine, because he thought heating pads were dangerous. And I remember rolling my eyes while also annoying me, feeling something that might have been, not love, but not nothing either, which made things messy, because messy is inefficient, and I hate inefficiency. So when I started noticing the signs, the phone glued to his hand, the sudden meetings, the delayed reactions, I didn't confront him, because confrontation is for people who need answers. I already knew. Instead, I accelerated my timeline. I orchestrated a family dinner, pulled both sides into one room, dropped hints just subtle enough to trigger suspicion, but not enough to cause chaos, and watched as the tension built like a perfectly controlled fire. My father, who had never really seen me before, suddenly looked at me like I was an asset instead of an afterthought. And when he finally said, "Come to the company tomorrow and sign the papers," I almost laughed, because all it took. K was a cheating husband, and a well-timed emotional performance for my value to quadruple overnight. That's the thing about people. They don't respect you until you're about to leave or about to explode. And I was doing both, strategically. And then of course the universe decided to add one final twist. Because just as Kim Yue came home that night, soaked in rain, holding me like I was something fragile and precious, and telling me, actually telling me, that he finally understood he loved me, that he wanted to stay, that everything was resolved, the doorbell rang, and there she was, Lin Shiyu, the original what if, the girl who had rejected him years ago, and now stood there, shaking, desperate, asking if his promise still stood. And in that moment, everything became crystal clear. Not because of her, not because of him, but because of me. I stepped forward, hugged her, wiped her tears, and said calmly, "It's fine, you can have him." Because the truth is, I never wanted him. I wanted what he represented, and I already got it. Kim Yue froze, confused, hurt, probably thinking this was some kind of test. But I wasn't testing anything. I was done. He left to chase her, because of course he did. He's a good person, in the most inconvenient way possible. And I went upstairs, packed my things, and filed for divorce before sunrise. He tried to come back, tried to explain, tried to fix something that was never meant to be permanent. But I kept it simple. You cheated. Not because I cared, but because it made the exit clean. And that was that. Fast forward a few years, and now I'm standing at the top of my own company. People calling me President CA, like it was always meant to be this way. Money, power, control, all the things I used to pick up from other people's leftovers, now entirely mine. Sometimes, late at night, I'll vaguely remember a man with warm hands and terrible decision-making skills, but the image fades quickly, like it was never meant to last. And honestly, that's fine. Because if there's one thing I learned from a lifetime of picking up what others discarded, it's this. Love might be nice, but leverage is forever.